Hello and welcome to today's episode of Sinfonietta Shorts Live, part of London Sinfonietta's Lockdown Live events. Music performed live by Sinfonietta players from their homes. We've got a fabulous show for you today. Sinfonietta pianist Clíodna Shanahan is going to be playing music by Patrick, Brennan and Edie Nesbit. All three are lurking in the Zoom wings to chat about the pieces in just a moment. And for you lot at home, do send in your scintillating and constructive comments and questions via YouTube chat during the event. And we'll have a Q&A session after we've heard the music. And just before kick-off, you should know that this series of events from April to June is supported by Lark Music, the insurance broker. And the London Sinfonietta is grateful for the investment of the Arts Council, which underpins everything it does, and to the trusts, sponsors and individuals who supports its work. Also, we should say a big thank you to the musicians themselves, because right now these musicians don't know when next concerts are going to happen, if they're going to happen, and have managed to keep their practice going. They've managed to work out the tech on their own to bring you these concerts for you at home, working out audio and video, often against all the odds, without any help while they're in lockdown. So huge thanks to the musicians for keeping things going too. And while I'm still on an admin role, everyone at Sinfonietta has been so gratified by how these live online events have brought us closer to you, the audience, without whom none of this would really make any sense. So we now want to continue this online programme in the autumn so that the ensemble is seeking support to offer more work opportunities to players and composers while normal concert giving is suspended. So if you feel that you can help, please do go to the ensemble website. However small your contribution, it is so hugely appreciated. And the suggested donation is perhaps the equivalent of a concert price ticket. You can just follow the link in the video below to make your donations. And thank you so much. It really is massively appreciated. And more details about upcoming performances and details of events that are coming up for London Sinfonietta's online event series, you can find on the London Sinfonietta website, which is londonsinfonietta.org.uk. And by the way, you should check out their swanky digital channel. It really is amazing, put together by London Sinfonietta's very own Adam Flynn, who you can't see, but is also lurking in the wings. And final bit to say before we get to talk to the composers and our performer today is please do subscribe to London Sinfonietta's YouTube channel. It's got some fab stuff on there, amazing performances, amazing chat from the best performers of contemporary music on the planet. So just click subscribe, you can see where it is, and it'd be fantastic to have you there. And throughout this event, there is a live chat panel. As I've said, please do feel free to send in your comments and questions, and we'll look at those at the end. So first of all, I want to say a big hello to Clíodna. Clíodna, where are you right now?
Hi Zoe, hi everyone. I'm in Limerick in the west of Ireland right now, in my parents' house, in their music room.
Please do subscribe. That's fantastic. I believe your mum is a piano teacher, is that right?
Yes, she was. She's retired now, but absolutely. Yes.
So that piano has been worn in by generations of piano students, I guess.
This piano, yes, I've had this since I was 7. This was, once it became apparent that this was, something that I was quite good at. This piano arrived in the house and it's been here ever since.
I have to ask you, before we start talking about the music, tell me what on earth is that gigantic item on your piano right there? Apart from obviously bits of music, that looks like a very contemporary music setup you've got there.
Well, yeah, you have these contemporary music, you have to build your own music desk really, because my music desk on this piano comes to about here. And I needed a lot more height. Contemporary music tends to be very tall for some reason. So I needed a lot more height. So I got the crate from my online shopping delivery and I flattened that out. And I got a rather nice book of Renaissance portraiture. Here's the slipcover. which was a present from my uncle. Thank you, Uncle Ger. And the various other bits, and I sort of MacGyvered them together with paper clips and blue tack to give a very, very tall stand, so I don't do very much page turning.
Well, it's a very impressive setup. I'm sure composers are very grateful for the lack of page turns. Patrick, big hello to you. You're also in Ireland right now. Hello there. Whereabouts exactly are you in Ireland?
I'm in
right
Derry, which everyone will now know from Derry Girls. So yeah, that's where I am.
That's fantastic. Patrick, it's very important. I think we both agreed before this show that just to pay tribute to this shorts on live series, that we should actually wear shorts. I mean, I'll show. Okay, sorry, I don't know if I can do this, but I'll just stand on a chair. Yeah, I'll go first. Okay, look, shorts. Oh, fantastic! You see, we really take this. We always take this very, very seriously, this series. So just you at home, if you ever want to watch future series, that is the look, shorts, to start off with. So Patrick, today Clíodna is going to play a piece of yours called 3 Miniatures. And this isn't a world premiere today, but it has been performed quite recently, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's done in late January, wasn't it, Clíodna? I think so anyway. So it's 3 pieces, really. I mean, 3 miniature pieces. That's. I have been writing a lot of little tiny pieces, and piano is my instrument, so that's what they usually end up being. And these 3 just fit together, I think, quite nicely, almost like a tiny, tiny, tiny sonata. So that's where the piece came from. Of course, the last movement has a sort of special significance to me because it's based on the last piece I ever showed, Ollie Nussum, and I've kind of redone it. It was originally a piece for choir, or a movement of a piece for choir, and I just did it in a way that I thought Ollie would like for the piano. So quite anal retentive, as you can imagine, and just, yeah.
I'm going to come back to that and ask you some more questions, because I think that's very interesting, that connection with Ollie, who, as you know, is also a very good friend of mine as well. But first of all, I know Clíodna has got some questions that she's dying to ask you. Clíodna.
Burning questions. Absolutely.
Okay. Ask away.
So we've been talking about this for a while, and of course, yeah, I played it back in January, so I've been sitting with it for a while. But you mentioned at one point that you're sort of flirting with consonance and dissonance, or tonality and atonality in this music. And could you talk a little bit about that? It runs through all the 3 pieces, actually, in a slightly different way. 2
different degrees in each piece, absolutely. Well, it's been a sort of a long-standing interest the last few years of mine, is the sort of, well, I don't know, what you call it, the rehabilitation of tonality or whatever. But I just had a sort of eureka moment some point during my PhD when it occurred to me that really there was no difference in tonal and post-tonal material. I arrived at that by this sort of spectral approach where everything can kind of be analyzed spectrally if you want to do that. So I just find myself more and more flirting with stuff that really sounds as if it might be tonal, but it's, that term they often use for like CGI in films where it's not quite good enough to look realistic. They call it the uncanny valley. And I really like that sort of uncanny valley tonality, as it were,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get that. Yeah, as you say, different degrees in each piece. And the other thing that's great, I think, that the our audience should know about, each miniature has its own title. It's not just 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the first piece is called the Musette de Coeur, and
very well pronounced.
The type of instrument and the type of dance. Is that right?
Yeah, Musette is it's a pretty well-known musical form. Rameau wrote several musettes, I think. Was one very famous and beautiful one. Schoenberg wrote musette, it basically just means a piece with a kind of a drone, which this piece has. It's a rhythmic drone too, because it's a repeating phrase of durations. Actually, maybe we could just, before we play the piece, just for people to hear. I think it sounds a bit like, the Mobius strip. I don't even sure if that's how you pronounce it, but where you feel like the ending is maybe here, but it's already happened. So you kind of psychologically get lost in the sequence. You don't, because you've got it right in front of you in nice, convenient 4-bar sections, but auditorily, you might lose the thread a little bit, which is kind of nice, I think.
Yeah, it's true. It's got that sort of hypnotic, slightly disorienting quality. Yeah, I'll just play a little bit of that drone because it's really good.
Yeah. It sounds better with other stuff, doesn't it?
It does, but you elevate it to the sublime.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
I think what audiences might find interesting about that little unit when we get back to it, because as you said, Patrick, what makes it like a Mobius strip? I think all of you at home will know that. If you get a tape, put it into a figure of 8 and bend it back on itself, then you have a strip where you are constantly going forward, but it's complete. So it's the sense of temporal reality being complete in a way. And I think that's what you've done rhythmically here, right? So you've put one rhythm against another so that there's a sort of temporal distortion in a way that creates an incredible whole. That's what you've done there. So incredibly beautiful effect.
Cheers.
Clíodna, I don't want to jump in too much, but I know that because since we're talking about the first movement, you've got a little paragraph in brackets. So there's Musette de Cœur, which is the title, Musette of the Heart, but also you've written Départ sur les cendres. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Well, that was, I had the first little bits of this piece. I thought about writing something along these lines when the Notre Dame fire happened. And I had a long period where I wasn't writing anything at all. So, it was perhaps a little bit of a catharsis for me to write something as well. So, the cathedral thing happened. And I thought, I think it's been done to death talking about this, but it seemed like a sort of important moment in like sort of Western civilization, and what's happening just generally in terms of intellectual movements. Just, it's very hard to put your finger on, but it felt like there was some kind of paradigm end, if not paradigm shift of some kind. So, yeah.
So the audience knows, cendre means ashes. So Patrick's talking about obviously your own personal journey from the ashes, but also the new reality, a new paradigm, which we're in now. Timely. Clíodna, I'll hand back to you if you were going to talk about the other movements.
Yes, and then we have the footsteps in the ashes, and then we come to cadence game, which is, exactly as it says on the tin, right?
It's a game with cadences, absolutely. I just took sort of some little skeleton pitches and put it through a very, very simple machine where they sometimes swap orders and whatever. And then I filled it out in a sort of, to make it sound more tonal than it actually is. And the result to me sounded extremely like Prokofiev, weirdly. So, the way he constantly modulates to like sort of unexpected places is that kind of chess player brain of his or something like that. So it's just it's a little kind of pastiche piece in that regard. And there's a sort of fake ending, and then the real ending is back to something resembling my own usual musical language, let's say.
Yeah, sure. It's so playful. I really love it.
So while we give Clíodna a chance just to get her head in shape for playing these 3 pieces, I just want to ask you about the last movement, titled Aquam Nostrum Pecunia Bibimus, Lignia Nostra Pretio Comparivarimus. Oh, I messed it up. Damn, I was so
Comparavimus. Oh, you're very, very close.
Comparavimus. I say that all the time. I mean, Patrick, first of all, what does it mean? Where does it come from?
Oh my God, I can't remember what it means. No, it means we
It means
must
something.
pay for the water we drink, the wood we get must be bought. And that's from the Book of Lamentations. I'm not really a Bible reader myself, but I did write a piece for choir for Tenebrae week or something like that. And yeah, that was one of the Lamentations of Jeremiah. So
there's a bit of an echo there with the first movement, right? Because Lamentations is all poor old Jeremiah bewailing the fate of Jerusalem, which has been trashed by the Babylons in 580 BC or whenever it was. So
580 BC, totally, yeah.
Yeah. So there you are. Once again, there's something. There's obviously a
miserable
kind of
git is what you're.
You put it so eloquently. Yeah. There's some. There's something very profound and dark that's coming through this. And I don't want to spoil it before everyone hears the piece, but there are definitely these moments of stillness in which I think you can sense this new paradigm emerging.
I'm regretting saying that now. But to me, this piece is like a sort of lullaby, and it does stop now and then for a little contemplation along the way. And yeah, it was based on a much simpler choir piece, which has been expanded out in all sorts of ways. But I think while I was thinking about Ollie while writing this one, it's his concept, or it might be George Benjamin's concept, but he used to talk to me about expensive notes. And I think this piece has plenty of expensive notes, the final one. The one before it, they're like Poundland notes, really. And the one in, I don't know, maybe sort of Sainsbury's notes for the first one. But this one really is, I think Ollie would have liked some of the notes at least.
Well, I think it's time to listen to some of those expensive notes. And so, Clíodna, we're going to hand over to you for this performance of Patrick's piece.
So this is 3 Miniatures by Patrick Brennan.
Patrick Brennan's 3 miniatures, played beautifully there by Clíodna Shanahan. And that last movement, a tribute to Patrick's friend and mentor, the composer and conductor, Oliver Nussin. Absolutely beautiful piece. We'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about that piece at the end of today's event, where we'll have a Q&A session. Please do keep those comments and questions coming in. It's wonderful to see that we've got listeners out there. Thank you for being here today. And we're now going to move to the second piece of music that we're going to look at today, and Clíodna's going to play for us, and that is by composer Edie Nesbit. Ed, hello.
Hello, Zoe.
Hello, lovely to see you. Where are you today?
So I am in London, in South Woodford, just on the border between East London and Essex.
So does that mean you've got green spaces there?
It's kind of some green, but mainly concrete still.
Okay, but I guess for most composers, social isolation is that's the regular state, right?
Well, indeed, yes. No, it's been, in some ways my life really hasn't changed that much in the last few weeks. I've been at home composing, which has been pleasant despite all the worrying things going on in the world.
Fantastic. Well, we're about to hear a piece of yours. Tell us how that came into being. Tell us about this. And it's not a world premiere we're going to hear today, but it was done quite recently, right?
Yeah, so this was the first piece I ever wrote for the London Sinfonietta. I wrote it in 2017 as one of their Sinfonietta Shorts series that Rolf Hind premiered in 1901 Arts Club. And this is its second outing today.
Fantastic. I know Clíodna has got some burning questions for you, so I'll hand over to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, Rolf Hind, I've got massive pianistic shoes to step into there. So this piece is called Two Lines, and there's a few different ways of talking about that title. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, so the title is quite playful in the sense that it is simultaneously true and quite misleading. So it is literally two lines in that the piano left hand has one line and the right hand has another line. It doesn't really sound like two lines most of the time because the hands are alternating. They're not playing at the same time. You just have one note by the left hand and then two by the right and two by the left and two by the right and on and on. And both hands play more or less entirely in the same register and they kind of cross over each other. So for a lot of the piece, it does sound like just one single line, despite the fact that it's made of two quite separate things. So I was wondering if perhaps you could start off by playing what the left hand plays throughout the piece.
Oh, sure, yeah. In various permutations of those three notes.
So yes, that is literally only those three notes are played by the left hand in the whole of the piece. So slightly in the same way as what Patrick was saying, I'm interested in conventionally tonal objects, major chords, and seeing what new things I can do with them, and kind of what new things I guess I can make them mean expressively as well. And that A-flat major chord is sometimes disrupted and sometimes reinforced by what the right hand is doing. So Clíodna, I was wondering if next you could play an example of the two hands working together to really reinforce the A-flat major.
For sure.
So as you can hear, the right hand is just playing the same notes as the left hand. So they're really kind of working together to make it sound like a major chord. That's actually quite an exceptional passage in the piece. And for most of it, the right hand is working to problematize what the left hand is doing in some way. So perhaps you could play the opening of the piece, Clíodna, to give an example of that.
For sure.
So, as you can hear, that really doesn't sound very much like an A-flat major chord at all, even though the left hand is just doing exactly the same thing as it's always been doing. The other notes in the text are serving to disguise it. And there was just one final example I was going to ask you to play, Clíodna. So when we were thinking about what we were going to say in this interview, I was looking for an example of it really genuinely sounding like two lines in this piece. And there's only a limited extent to which I was able to do that, because the hands are really intertwined quite closely the whole way through. Exactly. In fact, you may be able to see that visually while Clíodna is playing. And then there's one moment where, in fact, the right hand goes below the left hand. And perhaps the two hands feel a little bit more separate. Perhaps we could hear that, Clíodna.
Yeah. We just find it in the score.
It's bar 110. Thank you. So you can hear that they're the same but kind of independent as well. Yeah. Sorry, Zoe.
Sorry to jump in. There's that Zoom thing, isn't there, where we sort of trash over each other's square. Just while Clíodna's getting ready to play your piece, I just wanted to ask you, it has a very distinct kind of technical colour. The hands are in one place. There's a particular way of playing it technically. Would you say that this has an etude-like quality, a bit like a study? Is that part of what you were thinking in the piece?
Yes, definitely. So that single-mindedness is characteristic of quite a lot of my music. You know, sometimes quite extended passages of music that just do one thing without deviating from their course. But I think that's particularly true of this piece, and it's I do see it as being an etude, a study, and it's part of an ongoing project of mine of creating a book of etudes. And in fact, I've promised Clíodna to write her an etude or two, so I shall need to return to that project.
You're going to write her some demon ones, right? Some really tough ones. No.
Oops, sorry. Interestingly, the more the right hand reinforces the left hand harmony, the more technically difficult it is, you know, which is sort of, you get, and then as soon as they diverge, it's much easier. So you get that sort of slight contradiction, which is fun as well.
Ed, rumour has it that at the first performance, there were two performances of this piece. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So it was played as you will hear it now, and then it was played with blue tack over all of the strings, which has an effect of damping the strings and making them less resonant. And that's brought out the mechanical quality of the piece somewhat, I think. But also, I guess it's a kind of lopsided mechanicalness in that the machine is not working very well. And I think that goes quite well with the blue tack timbre, because however carefully you put blue tack on strings, it always comes off some of them a bit. So it's the wonderfully even tone that you associate with a normal piano, kind of, you lose it, and different notes accidentally have different timbral qualities, which I think is, in some way, goes with the sound world of the piece.
Well, I think it's time that we heard it. So Clíodna, I'm going to hand over to you.
This is Two Lines by Edie Nesbit.
Thank you so much, Clíodna. That was 2 lines by Edie Nesbit. And that brings us to the end of our performance part of today's Shorts Live. Thank you so much, everyone who's watching right now. We've got a load of comments here, and basically all of them just say how fabulous you're playing as Clíodna, what beautiful music is going on. If I read them out, there's people saying it's superb music. John Osborne here is saying he's really looking forward to resuming hearing and seeing the London Sinfonietta in concert halls. Yes, we all are. Let's hope it happens before too long. Steve Goss is saying it's a great format. He's loving Patrick's piece. That was before we'd even got to the second movement. We got a thumbs up. People are saying how haunting the music is. Beautiful playing, gorgeous, excellent, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's an endless stream of just gorgeousness, basically, you lot. Somebody has just asked Clíodna, how long has it taken you to get that piece into your fingers? Because it's tricky, right, as it goes on, all those rhythmic permutations.
Yeah, 2 lines. Yeah, so I've had it maybe a month, I think, and it took me a long time to realize that I need to move the piano stool right. So I don't have the piano stool opposite middle C as you usually would. It took me, a good 2 weeks to realize that, and then, oh, okay, light bulb moment. This makes a lot more sense. My arms are in front of me rather than over here,
While we're on that topic, I should just clarify that on the promo picture for today's series, you're sitting like this at the piano because it was a toy piano, just to clear up any confusion there in case people think that you're a Glenn Gould freak, which you are actually, but not.
Which I also am, yeah, but it was a toy piano and I thought I had to, sit on the floor like I was in Peanuts. It's the only way to play a toy piano. So
marvellous. We've got a question here from Claire Dulding. Patrick and Edward, this is for you. And she's saying, I love that you both draw on tonal tools and reshape them, but in different ways. Do you apply this thinking to your work in general? And what other ways would we see that, Patrick?
Well, I just thought it was quite interesting that Ed's repeating thing was A flat, C, E flat, and mine was just A flat and E flat. I don't know why we settle on that particular, 2 out of the 3 notes are the same. I spent a long, long time thinking about sort of the acoustics of sound and writing music based on the acoustics of sound in the harmonic series and that sort of thing. And it occurred to me that I could actually reverse engineer a lot of tonal music by considering the major triad as partials in whatever sequence. And it's extraordinary how much you can actually do that way. So I was like, well, I could write tonal music according to spectral principles, labeling all the partials if I wanted to. And that's kind of what there was like a sort of a tenuous little veil separating tonal and post-tonal or atonal. And it just kind of melted away really. And so I feel perfectly happy pilfering little bits from the tonal eras, like little cadences, for instance, in that second movement, or perhaps a little bit more subtly, like in the first movement, where I have very similar to Ed, a sort of a drone against which the melody line works or doesn't work. Yeah, I've done it in a few pieces now, but I feel like this is an area that a lot of people are coming to explore at the moment. I think overt dissonance as the sort of go-to new music sound, I think that's kind of gone now. And I miss it as well. I love hearing just some boules now and then just to sort of remind myself of what the possibilities are. But I think people are a lot freer to use more familiar intervals and combinations than they used to be. And I think you can, as we just heard with Ed's piece, which I thought was wonderful, just what you can do with a simple triad if you just have enough imagination and enjoy playing around with it.
Ed, how does it resonate with you, if you pardon the pun?
Yes, no, this is something that I do I think it's not overstating it to say I do it in all my music. I guess the fundamental premise of everything that I do is the idea that familiar sounds mean something to us. Be they major triads, minor triads, or particular rhythmic formulations, or timbres, or really anything that has existed in music before that we have heard, has resonances for us as listeners, and drawing on those can help the composer to express. And I think it's really important for me to state that that's not the same thing as in any way kind of trying to recreate the past or trying to conform to previous models of what music can be. I think one can draw upon these materials in new ways and find original sounds while essentially using very similar materials to what has been heard essentially for hundreds of years.
Do you think that you're particularly drawn to writing vocal music? And do you think that is also part of it, the sort of resonance of voices, the way that voices interact, affects how you also write for instruments? Do you think that's part of your language?
Well, I've never really thought about it. I mean, certainly I writing for voices is probably the thing I do most. And that goes back to, I mean, I sang as a chorister, as a treble, and kind of vocal writing really is at the center of what I do. And I guess, yeah, although I haven't done that consciously, inevitably then that will spill through into my vocal music if I like it or not, really.
Patrick, I had to ask you that I know that you're a pianist, and has that affected how you write for piano? Do you always try things out on the piano first?
Yeah, I do. It's difficult to write for your own instrument. I know you've written some amazing cello pieces yourself, but I find something that I think sounds good at the piano, and then I need to take it away from the piano, because otherwise, it's too easy. It's too composing with your fingers, so to speak. So I do try and get some distance from the instrument when I'm doing it. But a lot of these pieces, I think perhaps one or two in that, probably not the middle one, but the first and the third will probably end up being ensemble or orchestral pieces down the line, or parts thereof. So I do like to sketch on my own instrument, the piano, but it's important. Sorry, go ahead.
You've done it the other way around in the third movement of your piece, because that started off as a choral piece, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then has distilled into this absolutely beautiful piano piece, which also seems to imply orchestral colours. I wonder if you'll expand it again.
I might do, actually. Yeah, we'll see.
I think that would work really well.
Yeah, many times I can get away with recycling my material. Yes, absolutely.
So everyone watching, I promise you I'm not going to drone on. Everyone's just saying how fabulous you all are. Somebody has just said, Ed, your two lines evokes the flight path of a chicken. Just thought you'd like that one.
Compliments.
Brilliant.
I think that's absolutely marvellous. Clíodna, I've got one quick question for you, which the viewers might find interesting, which is what has led you to playing contemporary music on the piano? Because as a pianist, you have the most work of almost anybody as a performer, because you're dealing with so much information. You're usually dealing with multiple staves, more than the usual two. What drew you to playing contemporary music rather than sticking with Schubert like everyone else?
Well, I do also stick with Schubert,
Good girl, yes. That's the right answer.
I don't distinguish, between types of music. But then, I didn't really hear anything post, let's say, Debussy or Ravel until I was a teenager. And I remember we were brought to see Gruppen and
Stockhausen.
Baptism of Fire.
It blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. It was extraordinary. I thought, what is this? Give me more of it now, And so, and then from then, that's how it started. But yeah, I mean, as I say, I don't say contemporary music and everything else. It's all art, it's all music, it's all dancing, it's all theatre.
Good answer. We've got one question here from Joy Palfrey, who has said, I love the playfulness of these pieces, especially Patrick's movement 2 and Ed's blue tack idea. What other aspects of play did you go through to get to the final composition, or would you like or would you like to build on these works? I think it's a question about, is playing part of the way that you build compositions? Forgive me, Joy, if I've got your question wrong. So playfulness. Ed, does that again resonate with you?
Yes, it does. I mean, I think there are, to me, two aspects to that. One is the effect of the music, and a performance direction I find myself using a lot is scherzando, playfully, and I think that can be, it's such a rich direction because it implies some kind of entertaining, quirky musical surface, but doesn't exclude seriousness. And Chopin scherzos, for example, are sometimes really quite dark pieces, despite their lively and playful exterior. And that's something that that is quite important to me, I guess, this idea that something can be fun and kind of serious at the same time. In terms of the composition process, yes, absolutely. I do think of composing as being kind of just making things with my hands almost. It's a very kind of trial and error type of process where I play around with ideas. So yeah, I mean, it is, I think at its best, composing should be fun.
Patrick, I'm going to leave this final one for you. Playfulness, I'm just thinking your piece coming out of the dust of Notre Dame and the ashes of the Lamentations of Jeremiah. But is playfulness, do you think, has that been part of your way of writing?
It hasn't until recently, and no, much to my detriment, and it was a problem for a long time. It took me a while to just really begin to enjoy not knowing in advance, because that makes certain kinds of people perhaps feel a bit nervous, and I'm certainly one of those people. But play can be anything from, well, I know Andrea's watching in Belfast, so a Sudoku puzzle would be a form of play, and that's, you could consider serialism as a sort of playing in that regard. And yeah, I think play is the only way really to write music, unless you're kind of doing an exam situation piece, and it's nice to sort of get out of education and be able to play a bit more. Yeah.
Fantastic answers. Thanks for the question, Joy. And thank you, all of you, for watching today. It really does mean so much that you are able to join us here to make this connection between our musicians who are keeping going at this time, our composers who are still writing at this extraordinary time as the planet does its paradigm shift. So a huge thank you to all of you, and a massive thank you today to Patrick Brennan, to Edie Nesbit, and to Clíodna Shanahan for playing their music so beautifully. You should all go to the London Sinfonietta website to see what's coming up next. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. There really are some fantastic things coming up, and also some archive material that I think you'd find very, very interesting. And the next one of these, Shorts Live, Patrick and I are wearing shorts today, if any of you have joined late. Anyway, it's going to be next Wednesday, 20th of May, and Sinfonietta's incredible saxophone player, Simon Horam, is going to be playing a piece by Mark Bowden. It's a piece called Parable. And there's also going to be a piece by Graham Fitkin. He's going to play his piece Braemar. And both composers are going to be there for a chat, and I'm going to be hosting again if they'll let me back wearing these shorts. My apologies at the beginning if you heard a double echo. I did an amateur mistake of having the volume still up on my phone, even though it was on silent. Zoom learning lesson. So all your questions on YouTube may have come as an echo. Apologies for that, team. But anyway, many thanks to everybody. It has been such a wonderful thing to take part in. Be safe, be well. See you next time. Thank you. Bye.